What is happening to me? Oh my God, my tummy hurts. Ouch!
Amara was a very naughty girl. The first time she stole from her own family, the soup was still warm. She stood in the kitchen hut, her hand trembling as she lifted the calabash to her lips. Outside, her mother's voice called the children to come and wash their hands for dinner. But Amara couldn't stop. The rich, peppery broth of groundnut soup touched her tongue, and she drank and drank, her throat working fast, her eyes squeezed shut. It wasn't that there was no food in their home. Her father's yam farm stretched across 3 hills. Her mother's vegetable garden bloomed green and abundant. But something inside Amara was always empty, always reaching, always wanting more than her share. She had been this way since she was a small girl, hiding pieces of meat in her wrapper, sneaking extra fufu when her siblings weren't looking. Her grandmother had warned her mother, "That child has a hole in her spirit. Watch her carefully or it will swallow everything." But her mother had laughed it off. "She's just a growing girl," she'd said. Now, at 17, Amara was no longer growing, at least not in the way normal girls grew. She was growing in secret ways, in shameful ways. The hunger had teeth now. It whispered to her in the night, promising that if she could just have a little more, she would finally feel satisfied. She heard footsteps approaching the kitchen. Quickly, she wiped her mouth and set the calabash down, but her belly felt heavy, uncomfortably full. She pressed her hand against it and felt something strange, a warmth that wasn't quite normal, a fullness that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. "Amara!" Her younger sister Nkechi appeared at the doorway. "Mama says to bring the soup. Everyone is waiting." Amara looked down at the calabash. It was half empty now. Her heart began to pound. What would she tell them? How would she explain that the soup meant to feed 7 mouths had already filled one greedy belly? But when she looked again, something impossible had happened. The calabash was full again, brimming with the same rich groundnut soup as if she had never touched it at all. Amara's hands went cold. She picked up the calabash with shaking fingers and followed Nkechi outside, her mind spinning with questions she couldn't answer. What kind of magic was this? And why did her stomach still feel so terribly, painfully full? For 3 days, Amara's stomach remained swollen. She wrapped extra cloth around her waist and wore her loosest wrappers, but nothing could hide the hardness beneath her ribs. It wasn't the soft roundness of a full belly after a good meal. This was something else, firm and hot, like a stone warmed by the sun, sitting just below her heart. At night, she lay awake in the room she shared with her sisters, pressing her fingers into the swelling, feeling it pulse back against her touch. Sometimes she thought she could hear something inside it, a low rhythmic sound like distant drumming or water bubbling in a pot. "Are you sick?" Nkechi whispered one night, watching her older sister shift uncomfortably on her mat. "No," Amara said quickly, "just ate too much cassava at dinner." But she hadn't eaten the cassava. She had barely touched her portion, terrified that adding more food to whatever was growing inside her would make it worse. Yet the hunger never left. It clawed at her insides, demanding to be fed, whispering that one more bite, one more secret taste would make everything better. On the 4th day, she couldn't resist anymore. Her mother had prepared a feast for a naming ceremony: jollof rice, fried plantains, pepper chicken, and moi moi wrapped in banana leaves. The smell alone made Amara's mouth water and her stomach contract with desperate need. She was supposed to help serve the guests, but when no one was watching, she slipped into the cooking area and grabbed a full plate of rice. She ate standing up, shoveling the food into her mouth with her fingers, hardly chewing, hardly tasting. The hunger drove her forward, and she couldn't stop even when she heard voices approaching. She ate until the plate was clean, then grabbed another and another. By the time someone called her name, she had consumed enough food for 5 people. "Amara, where are you?" She stumbled out of the cooking area, her wrapper stained with palm oil, her lips red with pepper. But the strange magic happened again. When she looked back, all the food she had eaten was still there, untouched, as if her theft had never occurred. Only her stomach knew the truth. It had grown larger now, pressing against her wrapper, making it hard to breathe. She looked down and saw with horror that it had begun to show through her clothes, a round, hard bulge that no amount of wrapping could conceal. That night, her mother noticed. "Amara," she said quietly, pulling her daughter aside after the guests had left. "Come with me." They walked to the back of the compound, away from listening ears. Her mother's face was tight with worry, her eyes searching Amara's face in the moonlight. "Are you carrying a child?" The question hit Amara like a slap. "No, Mama, I swear it." "Then what is this?" Her hand touched the swelling and immediately she pulled back, her eyes wide. "This is not natural. This is not... Amara, what have you done?" Amara's throat closed. She wanted to confess everything: the stealing, the magic soup, the hunger that lived inside her like a living thing. But shame sealed her lips. "I don't know. I don't know what's happening to me." Her mother's face softened with fear. "We must see the herbalist. Tomorrow, at first light. Something is very wrong." But tomorrow would be too late, because that night, as Amara lay on her mat, her stomach began to glow. Old Mama Ikweme lived at the edge of the village, where the forest began to swallow the path, and the air grew thick with the smell of roots and smoke. People came to her with fevers and broken bones, with troubled pregnancies and mysterious pains. But when she saw Amara's swollen belly, her face went dark. "Bring her inside," she said, "quickly." The herbalist's hut was dim and crowded with hanging bundles of dried leaves, clay pots of ointment, and strange carved figures that seemed to watch from the shadows. Mama Ikweme made Amara lie on a woven mat and placed both hands on the swelling. For a long moment, she said nothing. Her eyes closed, her weathered face grew tight with concentration. Amara's mother stood in the corner, her wrapper clutched in her fists, her breathing shallow. Finally, the old woman pulled her hands away and opened her eyes. "This child has been cursed by her own greed," she said. Amara's mother gasped. "What do you mean?" "Tell me," Mama Ikweme looked directly at Amara. "Have you been eating what doesn't belong to you? Taking more than your share? Feeding yourself in secret while others go without?" Tears spilled down Amara's cheeks. The shame was a weight on her chest, heavier than the swelling in her belly. She nodded, unable to speak. "I thought so." The herbalist stood and began pulling down bundles of herbs from her rafters. The spirits of the soup have taken root inside her. Every stolen bite, every secret meal, they are all still there, growing, multiplying. The magic that hid her theft from others cannot hide it from her own body. "Can you cure her?" Amara's mother's voice broke. "It depends on her." Mama Ikweme began grinding leaves in a wooden mortar, her hands moving with practiced rhythm. "The cure is simple but not easy. She must fast for 7 days, no food, only water, and she must confess her theft to everyone she has stolen from. Every person, every meal, every secret bite. She must face her shame completely." Amara felt her heart sink. 7 days without food? The hunger already felt like it would tear her apart. How could she survive a week? If you think she can do it, subscribe now, because what happens next will shock you. "And if I don't?" Amara whispered. The herbalist's eyes were grave. "Then the swelling will continue to grow. The stolen food inside you will rot and ferment. Your belly will expand until it bursts, and everything you have taken will pour out of you, but you will not survive it. I have seen it happen once before, many years ago, to a man who stole his brother's inheritance." Amara's mother covered her mouth, holding back a sob. "How long does she have?" she asked. "If she begins the fast today, she has a chance. If she eats even one more bite," Mama Ikweme shook her head. 3 days, maybe 4. Then her body will begin to fail." The herbalist handed Amara a bitter-smelling tea. "Drink this. It will help with the pain, but remember, not 1 grain of rice, not 1 drop of soup. 7 days, and the truth must be told." They walked home in silence, Amara's mother's arm around her daughter's shoulders. The path seemed longer than before, the sun too bright, the world too sharp. Amara could feel every step jarring the swelling in her belly, could hear that strange bubbling sound growing louder. When they reached home, her father was waiting. What did the herbalist say? His voice was stern, but his eyes were worried. Her mother explained everything. Amara watched her father's face change: surprise, disappointment, anger, and finally a deep sadness that hurt worse than any punishment. Is this true? Amara asked. Have you been stealing from your own family? She nodded, unable to meet her eyes. Her father was quiet for a long time. Then he called the entire family together. Amara's 3 sisters, her 2 brothers, her grandmother who lived in the next compound. They sat in a circle in the main room, and the air was heavy with tension. Amara has something to tell you all, her father said. And so, with her voice shaking and her stomach burning, Amara began to confess. She told them about the soup, about the feast, about every secret meal she has stolen over the years. She told them about the hunger that never left, about the shame that had grown alongside it. Her siblings stared at her in disbelief. Her grandmother's face was unreadable. When she finished, the silence was suffocating. Then her youngest brother, only 8 years old, spoke. Is that why there was never enough meat in my soup? The innocent question broke something in Amara. She buried her face in her hands and wept. Deep, shaking sobs that came from the hollow place inside her, the place the hunger had lived for so long. But her confession had only just begun. Tomorrow, she would have to face the neighbors, the extended family, everyone she had wronged. And the 7 days without food stretched ahead of her like a dark, impossible road. As night fell, Amara lay on her mat, her stomach growling and gurgling, the swelling hot and hard beneath her ribs. The hunger screamed at her, demanding food, promising that just one small bite would make everything better. She closed her eyes and prayed for strength, because she knew that the hardest days were still to come. The first day of the fast, Amara thought she would die. The hunger wasn't just in her stomach anymore, it was everywhere. It lived in her fingertips, making them tremble. It clouded her vision, making the world swim and blur. It whispered in her ears, a constant hissing voice that told her she was foolish to try, that she would never make it, that one small bite wouldn't hurt. Her mother kept the bitter tea coming, forcing Amara to drink even when she gagged on the taste. It will help, she said, the herbalist promised. But nothing helped the hollow ache, the desperate emptiness that felt like it was eating her from the inside out. And the cruelest part was that her swollen belly remained, hard and full, a constant reminder of everything she had consumed in secret. By the second day, Amara couldn't get out of bed. Her sisters brought her water, their faces a mixture of pity and confusion. Nkechi sat beside her, holding her hand. I forgive you, she whispered. I want you to get better. But forgiveness didn't make the hunger easier. If anything, the kindness made it worse, because Amara could see now what her greed had cost. Not just food, but trust. Her family looked at her differently now. Even her father, who had always called her his special girl, kept his distance, as if afraid of what she had become. On the 3rd day, the confessions continued. Too weak to walk, Amara had to be carried to the neighbors' compounds. Each stop was a fresh humiliation. She confessed to Mama Okafo that she had eaten half the jollof rice meant for the church service. She told Uncle Chidi that she had stolen the entire pot of egusi soup he had left to cool. She admitted to Aunty Ngozi that the missing chin-chin from her daughter's birthday party hadn't been eaten by rats. Some people were kind, others were not. So this is why my children went hungry that night, one woman said, her voice cold, while you stuffed your face in secret? Each word was a knife, but Amara accepted them. This was part of the cure. Not just the fasting, but the facing. She had to look into the eyes of every person she had wronged and own the truth of what she had done. By the 4th day, something began to change. The swelling in her belly had stopped growing. It was still there, still hard and hot, but it no longer pulsed with that strange heartbeat. The bubbling sound had quieted, and though the hunger remained fierce, Amara noticed she could breathe a little easier. You are doing it, her mother said, tears in her eyes. You are fighting. But the battle was far from over. The hunger had new weapons now. It sent dreams of food, vivid and torturous. Amara would wake gasping, her mouth watering, convinced she could smell her mother's cooking. She would reach for phantom plates, her hands grasping at empty air. The 5th day was the worst. Amara's body began to rebel. She shook with fever, her skin burning hot, then cold. The herbalist came and gave her more tea, but this one was different, darker, more bitter, made from roots that looked like twisted fingers. The stolen food is dying inside her, Mama Ikweme explained to her mother. As it dies, it releases poison. The next 2 days will be the hardest. She must drink this tea every few hours, and she must keep confessing. The poison must have a way out through sweat and tears and truth. That night, Amara's grandmother came to sit with her. The old woman was silent for a long time, just holding Amara's hand, her fingers rough and warm. Finally, she spoke. "I know where this hunger comes from," she said quietly. "I had it too when I was young." Amara's eyes opened wide. "You?" Her grandmother nodded. "After my mother died, I felt empty inside. No amount of food could fill the hole she left. So I ate and ate, trying to make the pain go away. But it never worked. The hunger wasn't for food. It was for something else. Something I had lost." "What did you do?" Amara whispered. "I learned that some hungers can't be fed. They can only be felt, accepted, and then released." Her grandmother squeezed Amara's hand. "You are learning this now, child. You are learning to sit with the emptiness instead of trying to fill it." The words settled into Amara like seeds. For the first time, she understood that the hunger had never really been about food. It had been about feeling unseen, unimportant, less than her siblings. It had been about trying to take more because she felt like she had less. But she was learning now that she was enough. Even empty, even hungry, even with nothing in her stomach, she was enough. On the 6th day, Amara woke to find the swelling had shrunk. Not by much, but enough that she could see the difference. Her mother cried with relief. Her father smiled for a first time in days. Her siblings gathered around her mat, chattering with hope. "One more day," her mother said, "just one more day." But that final day would test Amara in ways she couldn't imagine. Because that afternoon, her mother prepared a feast for a wealthy visitor, a spread of all Amara's favorite foods. The smell filled the compound, sweet and savory and rich. The hunger roared back to life, stronger than ever, a beast awakened by the scent of prey. Amara's hands shook, her mouth watered, her vision tunneled until all she could see was the food, gleaming and perfect and so close. "Just one bite," the hunger whispered. "You've done so well, just one small taste as a reward." She stood up, her legs weak but moving, drawn towards the kitchen as if pulled by invisible strings. Her mother saw her and stepped in front of the food. "No, Amara, not yet. One more day. You can do this." "I can't, Mama, I can't. I'm so hungry." "I know, my daughter, I know. But you are stronger than the hunger. You've proven that. Don't give up now, not when you are so close." Amara collapsed in her mother's arms and cried. Not just for the food she couldn't have, but for everything. For the years of shame, for the trust she had broken, for the girl she had been and the woman she was trying to become. And in that moment, something broke inside her. Not her body, but the thing that had been driving the hunger all along. The emptiness that had demanded to be filled. It cracked open and light poured in. When the 7th day dawned, Amara knew she would survive. The morning of the 7th day arrived with a heavy silence. Amara woke before sunrise, her body weak, but her mind strangely clear. She placed her hand on her belly and felt the swelling. Smaller now, softer, but still there. It had to come out. Mama Ikweme had warned them. The final release would not be easy. Her mother was already awake, boiling water and preparing clean cloths. Her father stood in the doorway, his face carved with worry. The entire family had stayed home from the farm, sensing that today would bring either healing or catastrophe. "How do you feel?" her mother asked, helping her sit up. "Like I'm about to give birth," Amara said, and she wasn't far from the truth. The swelling had begun to move, shifting inside her like something alive and desperate to escape. Mama Ikweme arrived as the sun broke over the hills. She carried her bag of herbs and a clay pot filled with steaming liquid that smelled of bitter leaf and something else, something ancient and powerful. "It's time," the herbalist said. "Drink this, all of it." The liquid burned going down, hot and sharp, and so bitter that Amara gagged. But she forced herself to swallow every drop, her mother's hand steady on her back, her father's prayers whispered in a corner. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the pain began. It started as a cramp low in her belly, then spread upward like fire through her chest. Amara doubled over, crying out, her hands clutching at the swelling. It felt like her insides were being twisted, wrung out like wet cloth. "Let it come," Mama Ikweme said, her voice firm. "Don't fight it. This is the poison leaving your body. This is your greed dying." Amara's vision went white with pain. She felt her throat open, felt something rising up from deep inside her. Not food, but something else. Something dark and thick and foul. She vomited into the basin her mother held, but what came out wasn't normal sickness. It was black, viscous, and it seemed to writhe in the bowl like living shadow. The smell was putrid, rotten meat and sour milk, and something worse, something that made everyone in the room gag and cover their noses. "Keep going," the herbalist urged. "It's not finished." Wave after wave of darkness poured out of Amara. She vomited until her throat was raw, until she thought there was nothing left inside her. But still it came. All the stolen meals, all the secret feasts, transformed into this black poison that had been festering in her belly. Between the waves, she gasped for air, tears streaming down her face. Her mother wiped her forehead with a cool cloth. Her father held her shoulders steady. Her siblings watched from the doorway, their eyes wide with fear and fascination. Finally, after what felt like hours, the vomiting stopped. Amara collapsed back onto her mat, her body drenched in sweat, her stomach finally, blessedly flat. The swelling was gone, the heat was gone, the strange pulsing heartbeat was gone. All that remained was emptiness, but this time it felt clean. Mama Ikweme examined the basin of black liquid, then nodded with satisfaction. "It's done. The curse is broken." She looked at Amara with something like respect. "You chose the hard path, and you walked it all the way through." "Can she eat now?" Amara's mother asked. "Small amounts. Start with broth and soft foods. Her stomach needs to remember how to hold nourishment properly." The herbalist began packing up her things. But the real healing isn't finished. Her body is clean, but her spirit must learn new habits. The hunger will try to return. She must be ready. After the herbalist left, Amara's mother brought her a small bowl of clear broth, just vegetables and salt, nothing more. Amara held the bowl in her shaking hands, staring at the simple liquid. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel the desperate need to consume it all at once. Instead, she took one small sip, then another. She tasted the salt, felt the warmth spread through her chest, and noticed how her stomach received it gently, gratefully. "Slowly," her mother said, smiling through her tears. "There's no rush. There will always be enough." There will always be enough. The words settled into Amara like a blessing. For so long, she had lived in fear of scarcity, convinced that if she didn't take more than her share, she would somehow end up with nothing. But the truth was the opposite. By taking more than she needed, she ended up with poison. That evening, her family gathered around her mat. Her father brought his talking drum, and her mother sang the old songs. Her siblings sat close, no longer angry, just relieved that their sister had returned to them. Nkechi laid her head on Amara's shoulder. "I'm glad you're not going to burst," she said seriously. Despite everything, Amara laughed. It was a small laugh, weak and rusty, but it was real. And when she laughed, she realized something. The empty space inside her, the one she had tried to fill with stolen food, it wasn't a hole anymore. It was a space for new things, for trust regained, for habits rebuilt, for love received, not taken. "Thank you," she whispered to her family, "for not giving up on me." "We're a family," her father said simply. "We don't give up on each other." As night fell, Amara slept deeply for the first time in weeks. No dreams of food haunted her. No hunger clawed at her insides. She simply rested, her body healing, her spirit quiet. But when she woke the next morning, she knew the real test was just beginning. Because living without the hunger, learning to be satisfied, learning to trust that there would be enough, that was a lesson she would have to practice every single day for the rest of her life. The question was, would she have the strength to do it?
3 months later, Amara stood in her mother's kitchen, stirring a pot of egusi soup. Her hands moved slowly, deliberately, measuring out each ingredient with care. The smell rose up, rich, nutty, exactly right, and she felt her stomach rumble with normal, healthy hunger. The kind that said, "It's time to eat," not the kind that screamed, "Take everything before it's gone." She had learned the difference. It hadn't been easy. There were days when the old hunger tried to claw its way back, whispering that one extra serving wouldn't hurt, that she deserved more than the others. On those days, she would step away from the food and breathe, remembering the pain of the swelling, remembering the black poison pouring out of her. But mostly, she remembered her grandmother's words. Some hungers can't be fed. They can only be felt, accepted, and released. "Is the soup ready?" Her mother appeared in the doorway, smiling. These days, she trusted Amara in the kitchen again. It had taken time, weeks of Amara measuring exact portions, of eating only her share, of proving with actions that the girl who stole was gone. "Almost," Amara said. "Just needs a few more minutes." Her mother came to stand beside her, looking into the pot. "You've become a good cook, patient, thoughtful." "I had a good teacher." Amara smiled at her mother, and the smile was returned, warm and proud. Later that evening, when the family gathered to eat, Amara served the soup. She gave each person an equal portion, no more, no less. When it was her turn, she took her bowl and sat down with her siblings. The soup was delicious, perfectly seasoned, the meat tender, the vegetables soft. She ate slowly, tasting each bite, letting herself enjoy it without the desperate need to have more. When her bowl was empty, she felt satisfied, not stuffed, not still hungry, just enough. "This is good," her father said, nodding at her. "Really good. Thank you, Papa." After dinner, as Amara cleaned the dishes, Nkechi came to help. They worked in comfortable silence for a while. Then Nkechi spoke quietly. "I heard Mama Ekweme talking to Mama yesterday. She said you could have died, that most people who get the greed curse don't survive it." Amara paused, her hand still in the water. "I know." "Why do you think you did? Survive, I mean." It was a good question. Amara had thought about it often over the past month. Was it the herbalist's medicine, her mother's love, her family's prayers? "I think," she said slowly, "it's because I finally got tired of being hungry all the time. I realized that no amount of food would ever fill the empty place inside me, so I had to fill it with something else." "What did you fill it with?" Amara looked at her sister, really looked at her, at the trust in her eyes, the forgiveness that had been freely given, the love that never wavered even when Amara didn't deserve it. "Truth," she said, "and family, and knowing that I'm enough just as I am." Nkechi smiled and hugged her sister, soap suds and all. That night, Amara walked to the edge of the compound and looked out at the village. Lights flickered in the distance, families gathering for their evening meals. She thought about all the people she had confessed to, all the relationships she was slowly rebuilding. Some people forgave her quickly, others were still hurt, still weary. She accepted both. Forgiveness, she had learned, couldn't be stolen or rushed. It had to be given freely, and some people needed more time. She would wait. She would prove herself through her actions, day by day, meal by meal. A figure appeared beside her, her grandmother, wrapped in her nightcloth, her face peaceful in the moonlight. "You've done well, child," the old woman said. "I'm still learning," Amara admitted. "Sometimes the hunger whispers to me. It tells me I'm foolish for not taking more." "And what do you tell it back?" Amara thought for a moment. "I tell it that I already have everything I need." Her grandmother nodded, satisfied. "That is wisdom. Many people live their whole lives without learning that lesson. You learned it young. Use it well. They stood together in silence, watching the stars emerge one by one. Grandmother, Amara said, when you had the hunger, what finally made it go away? The old woman was quiet for a long time. Then she said, it never completely goes away, but you learn to recognize it for what it is, not a need, but a fear. Fear that you're not enough, that there's not enough, that you'll be left with nothing. Once you see the fear clearly, you can choose not to let it control you. And if it gets loud again, then you sit with it, you feel it, you let it pass through you like a storm, and then you get up and choose differently. Her grandmother touched Amara's cheek gently. You are stronger than you think, child. You proved that by surviving the cure. Now you must prove it every day by living well.